when love becomes a transaction. You gave her more, and she felt less, because somewhere along the way love stopped being a feeling and became a deal. It begins innocently. You fall for her. You want her to know. You shower her with attention, the morning texts, the late-night calls, the compliments, the plans, the little surprises. You tell yourself, I'm showing love. I'm being real. This is what a good man does. But something strange happens. She smiles less. She replies slower. She seems disconnected. You try harder. You give more. You double down on the very thing that seems to be pushing her away. What you don't see, what no one tells you, is that your love has quietly turned into a transaction. You didn't mean to, but your gestures, your availability, your emotions all began to carry an unspoken message. I give you this, so I can be chosen. I love you, so you should love me back. And women can feel this deeply. They may not say it, but they know when love is offered as leverage rather than from self-possession. True love is free, not strategic. But when it becomes a currency for validation, it loses its purity. It becomes pressure. It becomes manipulation wrapped in roses. You think you're being romantic. She feels something tightening around her. You think you're proving your worth. She starts questioning hers. When love becomes a transaction, it stops being love. And she can feel it even when you can't. The more you try to earn her heart, the more she forgets she has one. The attention erosion principle. What you give every day becomes invisible. Even gold, when poured constantly, becomes background noise. At first, she lights up when she sees your message. A compliment from you warms her chest. Your attention feels rare, powerful, like sunlight after days of cold. But you want her to know you're real. You're serious. You're consistent. So you message her more. You stay up late. You react to every story, every mood, every shift in tone. And without realizing it, you've become her emotional wallpaper. Always there, always on, always yes. But here's the paradox. The more accessible your attention becomes, the less valuable it feels. What was once exciting is now expected. What made her feel something now barely registers. This isn't because she's cruel or ungrateful. It's neurology. The brain adapts. The mind normalizes. And what's constant becomes invisible. You're not wrong for being consistent. But attention without polarity, without space, without mystery becomes noise. She doesn't stop appreciating you. She stops feeling you. And once she stops feeling, she starts drifting. Attention without contrast becomes silence. And silence between two people is where desire dies. She doesn't need less of you. She needs more of what makes you felt. Why constant presence kills mystery? You were always there. And that's exactly why she stopped looking for you. There's a strange magic in not knowing, in the unanswered text, in the space between meetings, in the slight delay that keeps the imagination burning. Mystery is not deception. Mystery is presence balanced with space. It's the oxygen that keeps the fire alive. But you, in your eagerness to be seen, heard, and chosen, erased every ounce of mystery. You showed up on time. You responded immediately. You explained yourself constantly. You became entirely known, entirely predictable. And in doing so, you robbed her of the one thing women crave in the early stages of attraction. The feeling of discovery. When you're always around, there's no journey. When you're always reachable, there's no polarity. When you're always giving, there's no tension. She didn't lose interest because you failed. She lost interest because you became safe in the wrong way. Not protective safe, but emotionally overexposed, no corners left unexplored, no energy left to chase, no space left to lean into. Attraction needs distance. Desire thrives in uncertainty. And love, real love, needs mystery to feel alive. She didn't want you to disappear, but she needed to miss you to feel you. When you're always present, you leave nothing for her to reach toward. The illusion of emotional investment. You thought the more you gave, the deeper the bond would grow. but she felt suffocated, not seen. You've heard it all before. Love is about effort. You get what you give. Show her you care. So you gave, and gave, and gave. You opened your heart. You shared your past. You expressed your fears. You told her what no one else knew. You believed this would make her feel closer. But she started pulling away. And it hurts deeply because you weren't faking it. Your emotions were real. Your words were honest. You were all in. But here's the hard truth. Emotional investment doesn't always equal emotional connection. You gave everything, but you didn't let her earn anything. You flooded the space. You made yourself emotionally naked too soon, without balance, without pacing, without restraint. And in doing so, you took away the mystery of unfolding, the natural dance of two souls discovering each other, the tension, the distance, the pull. It became one-sided. You were carrying the weight of intimacy for both of you. But real intimacy is mutual, and real desire is built in space, not in saturation. Sometimes giving too much too soon isn't generosity. It's fear wearing a noble mask. You didn't lose her because you were too deep. You lost her because you dove alone. Love is not how much you give. It's how much you invite the other to meet you. Neediness versus emotional maturity. You said, "I just want to be open." But what you really meant was, "Please don't leave me." There's a sacred beauty in vulnerability, but when it's laced with desperation, it turns to poison. You told her how much you missed her. You told her how much she means to you. You shared your emotions honestly, maybe even tearfully. But she didn't lean in. She pulled away. And you're left wondering, why does it feel like the more emotionally open I am, the more she distances herself? Here's the quiet difference no one ever teaches you. Maturity expresses emotion with ownership. Neediness expresses emotion with an agenda. A mature man says, "This is how I feel, and I will be okay regardless of what you choose." A needy man says, "This is how I feel, and I need you to fix it." The first is grounding. The second is pressure. When your emotional expression is a strategy to gain closeness, safety, or control, it stops being love. It becomes emotional bargaining. And women, especially intuitive women, can feel this instantly. She's not rejecting your feelings. She's rejecting the invisible hook hidden inside them. You thought you were being deep, but you were actually asking her to carry the weight of your inner world. And no woman can fall in love with a man whose emotional center depends on her reaction. Real vulnerability is shared from a place of power, not panic. You're not weak for having emotions. You become weak when you outsource their meaning to her. The fear behind overgiving. You weren't loving freely. You were buying time before the inevitable rejection. You called it love, but under the surface it was fear. Not the fear of losing her, but the fear of not being enough unless you're constantly giving. You offered your attention, your time, your validation, your plans, your emotional availability, all up front, all overflowing. But behind every gesture was an unspoken question. Is this enough to make her stay? That's not love. That's self-erasure in disguise. Many men overgive not because their heart is too big, but because their sense of self is too small. They believe they must earn affection through constant effort, because deep down they don't feel inherently worthy. And here lies the twist. Overgiving doesn't make you more lovable. It makes you invisible. Because when you flood her world, you remove her ability to feel your boundaries. And boundaries, whether she knows it or not, are what make a man feel real, solid, grounded. When you say yes to everything, when you anticipate every need, when you fill every silence, you leave no room for her to reach for you, to wonder, to respect, to reciprocate. What looks like generosity often hides the fear of being forgotten. You give not to connect, but to avoid the silence that might reveal your own emptiness. Real love doesn't come from fear. It comes from self-worth so solid it doesn't need to prove itself. Why she doesn't trust easy love. You gave her your heart on a silver platter. And instead of feeling safe, she felt suspicious. You meant well. You thought, if I just love her purely, openly, without games, She'll trust me, she'll feel me. But something unexpected happened. The more you adored her, the more cautious she became. The more certainty you gave her, the more doubt she carried. And it doesn't make sense until you understand one thing: love that comes too easily often signals desperation, not discernment. When a man loves a woman too fast, too openly, without even knowing her fully, what he's really saying is, "You don't need to earn this. I just need someone." To her, that doesn't feel like love. It feels like projection, like he's falling in love with the idea of her, or worse, with the relief of being wanted. Women may crave love, but they also crave value, and value is felt when love is given with intention, not out of emotional hunger. If you offer everything too soon, you skip the part where she gets to show up. You deny her the experience of feeling chosen because you've already pre-decided without seeing her complexity. And so she pulls back, not because she doesn't want love, but because something inside her whispers, "This isn't real. He doesn't know me. He just wants to be loved." When you give love too easily, you don't look strong. You look empty. She doesn't want to be rescued by your feelings. She wants to be recognized by your presence. The trap of being too available. You thought being there for her at all times was love. She experienced it as emotional noise. Every time she called, you picked up. Every time she needed something, you dropped everything. You made time. You shifted plans. You were there always. You thought you were proving loyalty, consistency, commitment. But something shifted. She started canceling. She became colder. She stopped initiating. And you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? The truth is, you were too available. Not because being present is bad, but because availability without boundaries becomes emotional background music, always playing but never noticed. Availability is attractive when it's rooted in purpose. When a man makes space for a woman while still holding on to his own mission, time, values, rhythm, that's presence with power. But when a man rearranges his world for hers, when he's always on call, when his day shifts every time she feels something, he becomes consumed by her orbit. And that's not attractive, that's draining. It creates an imbalance where she's no longer responding to your gravity. She's simply orbiting her own mood while you revolve around it. Paradoxically, what makes a man magnetic isn't how available he is. It's how he chooses when to show up and when to stand still. Love isn't about being constantly present. It's about showing up with weight when it matters. A man without boundaries becomes invisible, and women can't desire what they can't feel. When love smothers her instincts, she didn't leave because you were bad to her. She left because she forgot who she was around you. Attraction is not born in perfection. It's born in polarity, the dance between the masculine and the feminine, the steady and the flowing, the certain and the curious. But when your love becomes too complete, too predictable, too smothering, it starts to blur that dance. You try to anticipate her every need. You comfort every flicker of emotion. You protect her from silence, uncertainty, discomfort. You overfunction out of care, yes, but also out of fear. And slowly, without meaning to, you rob her of something sacred, her feminine instinct. The part of her that wants to feel into things, the part of her that needs contrast to come alive, the part of her that doesn't want to be saved, but seen. When you fill every emotional space, when you smooth every edge, when you respond before she even speaks, you override her natural rhythm with your own. And instead of feeling loved, she feels smothered. Instead of feeling desired, she feels held back. Instead of feeling like a woman, she starts to feel like a project. You meant to nurture her, but you accidentally neutralized her. And so she begins to lose touch with her desire, not because you were wrong, but because there was no room left for her to feel anything at all. Too much love given too constantly becomes a cage lined with velvet. She doesn't want to be wrapped in comfort. She wants to be awakened by your presence, not absorbed by it. Loving less, feeling more. The paradox. You thought love meant more presence, more giving, more emotion. But love, like breath, only works when it expands and contracts. Here's the twist most men never see coming. You don't need to love less to be powerful. You need to love with more clarity, with more space, with more self. You don't stop caring. You stop over-functioning. You don't become cold. You become centered. Because what truly makes a woman feel what makes her desire, respect, surrender is not the man who gives endlessly, but the man who stands firm in his presence and lets love move through him with direction. When you don't need her affection to feel whole, when your world doesn't shrink to her emotions, when you allow both distance and closeness to breathe in your connection, you become rare. You become a man who can love deeply without becoming consumed, who can feel fully without losing form, who can care profoundly without collapsing inward. And she feels it, not just in her mind, but in her body. She leans in not because you ask her to, but because your grounded presence invites her in a way no amount of chasing ever could. You give less, but it means more. You say less, but she hears you deeper. You show up less often, but she feels you more fully. The more you love wisely, the more she feels wildly. It's not about holding back love. It's about holding love with hands strong enough not to crush it. Be the man who doesn't drown her in affection, but breathes life into her with presence. If this spoke to something you've lived through or are still navigating, take a breath. Come back to yourself, and if you know a man who needs to hear this, share it. Then hit subscribe because the journey doesn't end here.